gavel this one, do we?
We don't.
All right, are we set? We're 7 o'clock. Almost. Our clock's now running a little fast, huh? 1 minute. All right. Yeah, we got somebody coming in right now. All right, we're gonna wait
There's a
about
couple
30
more.
seconds. We got a couple more people walking up, so anytime we can double, triple, and quadruple our attendance, we'll go ahead and wait 30 seconds. Perfect. Signing, yes. Is there a sign?
No, it was, oh yeah, just to see who was at the meeting.
Oh, okay, well, all right. Well, sounds good. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is our sales tax special election town hall meeting. It's Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Time is 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out. We are streaming this live, and so anybody that's watching us live, thank you for watching. We welcome you to our special election town hall. We'll be providing information and answering your questions regarding the sales tax special election that will be taking place. Early voting starting this Monday, the 24th, and final election day will in fact be November 8th, 2022. This town hall is being recorded and will soon be available on demand at the City of Helotes YouTube channel. And joining me tonight is City Administrator Marion Mendoza and City Council Place 1 Craig Sanders. And our City Attorney Frank Garza was going to be here, but he's not in attendance this evening. But we have passed through all our information through our attorney, make sure that we have everything legally correct. Marion will be here this evening to provide some basic information and respond to questions, but she will not be taking any position. Officially, the city does not take position for or against sales tax propositions, but she'll be getting us started here with our basic information on this issue. Marion?
Good evening, everyone. For the sales tax special election, registered voters in Helotes can vote either for or against the following proposition. And the proposition that will be listed on the ballot is the adoption of a local sales and use tax in the city of Helotes at the rate of 1.25. This is an increase of 0.25% from the existing 1%. So people ask a lot about what is sales use tax. Well, in the state of Texas, sales tax is applied to purchasing most goods and services. Texas sales tax varies in location. There is a statewide sales tax that goes, so out of the 8% or 8.25, it goes 6.25% goes to the state. In addition, local taxing jurisdictions such as cities like Helotes can impose a sales tax up to 2% for a maximum tax rate of 8.25%. The city's current rate is 8%, and if a proposed additional sales tax use tax of 1/4 cent is approved by Helotes voters during the November 8th election, then the rate will increase to 8.25%. So what our current rate consists of is 6.25% goes to the state, 0.5% goes to our Economic Development Corporation, 1% goes to the City of Helotes General Fund, and 0.25% goes to street maintenance. That is also voted on every 4 years, and we reauthorized it in 2019. We have a lot of neighboring cities that already collect 8.25% sales tax, which is Bernie, Bandera, Castroville, Leon Valley, Chavano Park, Hollywood Park, San Antonio, and so forth. There's a lot more, but those are the ones that are closest to the city of Helotes and in Bexar County. How much would a sales tax cost? Well, the city has placed a 1/4 cent sales tax in the proposition for the voters to consider. This would be 25 cents to a $100 purchase of taxable goods if approved. And what is the revenue? A lot of questions we had is what is the revenue that this would produce? Well, if it is passed in November, we cannot collect until starting in April. That is the law. So for fiscal year 2023, we would collect approximately $350,000 in revenue for that year. So because we can't collect for the full year. How is the city meeting its funding need? How would the city meet its funding needs if without raising these taxes? One solution, or we're without raising property taxes. One solution is to place a proposition on the ballot to increase the city's local sales tax, which is paid both by residents and visitors who work and shop at Helotes. A sales tax measures would provide locally controlled revenue to help enhancements to essential city services like police, fire, and paramedics. So those are basically the questions when it comes to the city and the sales tax. Councilman Sanders will discuss where the sales tax will be allocated.
So good evening, everybody. And so welcome the folks that are here in attendance and those folks out there live streaming. So yeah, I'm your councilman. I've been representing, I represent you. I've been doing that for 2 years. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit of how this came about. I'm going to give you a little bit of my opinion on why I voted for it, my personal opinion, and then I'll quickly go over what are some of the things, how it can be spent. So, so on July 28th this year, City Council considered a ballot proposition levying a 1/4% sales tax for general purposes. Subject to voter approval. So that's why you guys are here. That's why those folks are listening in. You guys want to know the facts. Council can't make this yea verily for the entire city. The voters do. So thank you for being here. So anyway, so council went ahead and voted that this proposition will be placed on this upcoming election. So the November 8th election, the early voting starts
Monday, the 24th.
the 24th of Monday leading up to the general election. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit insight on why I voted yes to put, I'm calling it Prop A on the ballot. So I moved here back in 2010, and I was still active duty military. And so once I bought my house, I went to my work center, and all my new colleagues asked where I moved to, and I said, hey, I bought this great house in Helotes. Helotes is a wonderful place. And one of the folks went like, oh, and that concerned me, and I didn't know what that meant. And they went on to say, oh, Helotes is beautiful, but there's a cop behind every tree. Do not speed in Helotes. Don't go more than 2 miles over the speed limit. And needless to say, 6 months later, I got pulled over. And so that was all true. I don't know how long all of you have lived here, but if you notice, things have changed over time. You don't see police as frequently, and there's a reason why. One of the facts that I share with people, and one of the things that convinced me was the geographical area for our police force has greatly expanded since I've been here since 2010. A bunch of the roadways in what's called the ETJ surrounding the municipality, the city has annexed over the course of the years. So, for example, Highway 16 roadway, the city's responsible. When I say city, I'm talking about our first responders as well as public works are responsible for responding to any kind of accidents or anything that requires first responders all the way out to Picassios, where Helotes Pits used to be, which is really far out on Bandera Road. A lot of people don't realize we're responsible for 1560 all the way out to the intersection of Gulm Road and Shanefield. We're also responsible for that intersection on Shanefield almost all the way out to 1604. And the same holds true between Brown Road and 1560, almost all the way out to 1604. And so if you look at that from a map, you see Helotes, and then, oh, by the way, several years back, the city annexed property out on Gulm Road. So Helotes has a new community down there called Brycewood. It's 600 plus homes with more homes being built. So geographically, it's a challenge for our cops to provide those solutions, the same, patrols and support as everybody else in Helotes. So if you look at it from a map, again, this is my opinion, my perspective, but when I see it, I see this kind of rectangle and it looks like a spider. There's all these roadways that our cops, our first responders are responsible for being dispatched to respond to. And not having changed any of our numbers for our police force over the course of that time frame, we've really spread our cops thin. And so for me, it was a no-brainer why I would support that. Am I a tax and spend guy? No, I'm not. Nobody on council is. But sometimes you gotta look at this as an investment. And that's how I looked at it, and that's why I voted the way I did. So how can this money be spent? So I'm going to stay word for word on this because the lawyer's here. So the money can be spent, the proposed quarter-cent sales and use tax revenue would increase the City of Helotes general fund allocation from 1% to 1.25%. And that's important. The way it's worded on the ballot, it makes it look, to me, when I see the wording, it makes it look like you're increasing the tax rate by 1.25%, and that's not true. We're asking for an additional, 0.25%. City Council has identified the need for additional police officers and has prioritized these positions to be paid for by this sales tax increase if it's approved. Proceeds in the general fund pay for services that include police, fire, our first responders, the maintenance and beautification of city parks, public works, special community events, and infrastructure. So because the way sales tax is handled, it goes straight into the general fund because all those things are possible. But the key thing here is the prioritization. The police force will be our priority. So that's all I've got to say on that. I actually have a question I think was collected earlier.
There was 2 questions.
I only saw the one. I got 2.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh. Are these my questions?
No, those 2 were submitted via our.
Oh,
online
okay,
portal.
so those aren't mine necessarily.
No.
Okay. So, because I had one here, I thought there was,
Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead with your question.
so a resident asked, can these funds be used to add embedded social workers to the police force? So I'm not going to make a judgment on would I support that or not. That's a whole nother issue. The question is, could these funds, if this sales tax increase is approved and those funds go into the general fund, can they? And the answer would be yes. The key note there is though, that particular response to that question would have to go through city council. So city council would have to approve that. So I won't render my personal opinion on that, but I think they'd have to make a pretty serious case to do that. And, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So if you want to cover that too, there was one more resident question that was submitted. You can just read it verbatim.
Okay, so if we hire more police officers, will a significant part of their duties be to slow traffic in Bandera near Los Reyes? I don't even have, absolutely, yes. And so, and the mayor will probably talk to this since he has more visibility than I do. I just know from talking to residents, and there's a demand signal for more police within our community. And so, so people will actually ask for, hey, there's a lot of speeding. I know where I live in Iron Horse Canyon, and that's a long road, and people will speed on it. And so the city will then try to put a patrol there, but that means you don't have a patrol catching the speeders on Highway 16, or you don't have somebody inside another neighborhood looking or being a deterrent to possible petty crime or something like that. So the answer would be yes, with more police officers, more patrols, you can cover down and have bigger presence, faster response times across all of this city. So the answer would be yes.
Perfect. Okay. At this point, I'm going to discuss the effect on businesses if there's a higher sales and use tax. And one of the questions was, would a sales tax increase hurt local businesses? As Marion pointed out, this is on a $100 purchase, it would amount to 25 cents or about a penny on a Frappuccino coffee. So in all reality, there is no evidence that sales tax rate increase of this size would discourage patrons from supporting local businesses. Research suggests that a 25 cent per $100 spent is not enough incentive for customers to change their buying habits, particularly given the fact that all the other cities around in our area already have that extra 0.25%, and they've been charging that for quite some time. Question of what is the city of Helotes' major sales tax generators? So, and I'm going to give a little bit of background because I did get a question on this last night in one of the, I won't say homeowners association, it was a community meeting that was at last night. They asked, how do we know most of our sales tax is paid for by people outside of the city of Helotes? Most people feel that our largest business is Walmart, and that's fairly reasonable to assume. But roughly half of Walmart sales are made by Helotes residents and half of their sales are made by outside of Helotes. And we know this from software that we have through the Economic Development Corporation that gives a heat map of where their customers from every business shops from. But we do have a business that generates 8 times the size of Walmart, and it's a large cabinet maker, and nearly 100% of their sales is to area outside of Helotes area. So when you add those numbers up and we get a list of all of our sales tax revenues, really quickly you see that well over 2/3 of our sales tax is paid for by people outside of the city of Helotes. So our major sales generators, of course, is that building materials, of course our large retail store like Walmart, and then we move down into restaurants, and then it quickly gets to smaller mom and pop shops that we're blessed to have here in Helotes. Do sales tax propositions affect essential purchases like groceries and medicine? No. By law, essential purchases like these are exempt from sales tax, so it would have no effect on purchases of groceries and medicine. Would visitors to Helotes pay the local sales tax? Yes. Anybody that shops in Helotes, wherever they live, will be paying the sales tax. As we know, we have Helotes Market Days, for example, brings a couple thousand people every month, and certainly you see your friends and neighbors out there, but a huge, vast majority of shoppers that come in for that event are surrounding areas. A lot of them from the greater Helotes community, but they are not Helotes residents. So that goes to the calculation that higher percentages is not paid for by our residents. At this point, we are going to open it up as a town hall meeting. If anybody has a question, one at a time, we'll have you come up to the little podium so that we can hear and actually get the recording, because we are streaming live. And if you don't mind, just state your name and address, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, good evening, and thank you all for holding this and answering citizens' questions. My name is Timothy Tong. I live at 14926 Iron Horse Way. The question I have is, it is in line with the first question that Mr. Sanders fielded about social workers being embedded. As we know, devil is always in the details. I know of nobody who's against, mom country, apple pie, and the police. But what does it look like as far as we're talking about approximately $330,000 generated in the first year of this? How many police boots on the ground is this going to bring to us? And secondly, when might we see this come to fruition? Because, again, this is being sold to us as primarily for police and safety, rather than a new pickleball court or something. And that's what, I'm interested in knowing, and the devil is, of course, in the details.
Sir, that is an excellent question, and I want to address that head on. We have identified that we have a need for between 6 and 8 additional police officers right away. And this past year, we have certainly built up our savings and restored solid financial conditions to our city. But as you can imagine, you can't really pay ongoing salaries out of savings, or your savings would be depleted near immediately. So that's what it requires, a different income stream, revenue stream to pay for. When you take a look at a police officer in Helotes, their salary and overhead and benefits and whatnot, it carries a price tag. We're using round numbers here for conversation, about $75,000. So you get 8 police officers, you're looking at $600,000 per year. And then you have raises on top of that. We also want to get 2 public works officers as well, but the primary focus will be on the police officers. One of the things that we have done as a city, we had some ARPA grant money that was bestowed upon us by the federal government, and we went ahead and because that will pay the salaries for a police officer for 3 years. So we have already put in the process to hire 2 police officers from that grant money. However, that grant money runs out and we're going to need to be able to pay for that. So that's 2. But they're coming on, boots on the ground right away. If this passes as of November 8th, if it passes, immediately we will start the process to be able to hire the additional 6 officers. And as soon as we can get them on, even though we will not be actually having cash in hand until April-ish area of next year, we have enough money and reserves and operating right now to be able to go ahead and start the hiring process so we can get the boots on the ground right away. We can cover the interim cost through our budget, but that would be the intention in my direction, is that once this is approved, if it is approved by the people, hire the police officers, because it takes a little while to be able to put out, advertise, interview process, get them hired. And I would personally like to see those boots on the ground by January 1 would be my desire. Certainly it would be as soon as possible with immediate actions towards advertising for positions and hiring. And then as the money starts rolling in, we would certainly have the cash flow to be able to support those salaries. And so it's the short answer, immediately, but with the detailed explanation. Thank you, that's an excellent question, because it is for ongoing keeping Helotes safe efforts due to the priorities that have been established and identified voted on by council, but identified by police force and our boots on the ground right now, and how thin our coverage is currently. Does anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
How's it going? Mark Montgomery, live in 11830 Shotgun Way. Sorry, that's a little too close. Have a few questions here. First off, I'd just like to start by thanking everyone, especially the citizens that are here today, to ask and discuss. First and foremost, I am in law enforcement. I am in public safety. I'm a firefighter. I am 100% for anything that increases public safety on the ground. So work with police officers for 25 years. I think we've been kind of in the area together. So there is no doubt I am 100% supportive of anything. I've been actually asking for this for quite a while, even if we need to increase some taxes. However, at the same time, looking around the city, looking at the signs, the Prop A signs, looking at the flyers, I just have to question a few things. What is and Councilwoman came by the other day, even talking to the House and presenting one of the flyers, and one of the questions I had is, what is the revenue currently right now? What are you bringing in sales tax a month?
Good question.
It varies a month, but I can tell you where we're ending for the fiscal year.
Okay, I just want to make sure my numbers are right. That's why I want to make before I.
So, let's see, we're estimating. So It's about I would say between 200 to 300 thousand a month, but that's divided amongst the EDC, which gets 0.5%.
Okay.
And then 0.25% goes to street maintenance.
Okay. I just need to look at one thing on my end, because I grabbed this real quick while I was walking out. I'm not sure if these are do you know your sales a month? That might actually help me. Do you know your total sales for the city for that, or?
We'd have to
We'd
back
have,
figure
we'd
it.
have to look at that. So we have a 380 agreement,
Mm-hmm.
so we get a portion of the sales tax, but then a portion goes back out. So if you look at our comptroller monthly,
Mm-hmm.
that is not what actually the city is able to utilize. So a portion of that goes out back because of our 380 agreement to a company here in the city.
Okay, to pull in, to do the like sales tax revenue
Right.
type things? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
it was a contract that was made.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a contract that was made, I would say 2017.
Okay.
So for them to have here, so basically what it is that, we keep a portion and then we have to give a portion back. So we cannot utilize that for anything, in the city.
So
Okay.
just to clarify on that, if you look at the comptrollers and you're like, oh my gosh, they get all this money. And just to put it in simple terms, this is how much they show, but we have to give back a whole big portion of it. So this is actually what net we have to work with. And of that net, it gets divided into streets and EDC, and we have what's left for the city.
Correct.
So it's a little bit misleading when you look at the gross numbers.
Yeah, 'cause I'm
Coming from
looking
the
at
comptroller,
13
you're like, oh my gosh, we got plenty of money for everything. But we're actually, per the agreement, and to really put this in layman terms, outside of the city, everybody knows that, like, for example, San Antonio, you hear about economic development programs to bring Toyota to San Antonio. What they did is they gave them breaks on property taxes. So they collect the property tax and then give it back to them, where they collect the sales tax and they give it back to them as an incentive for them to locate there.
Build.
And so our 380 agreement with one of our large businesses, we do end up having to refund most of the sales tax that we collect. It was the incentive to get them back. And even still, the net result puts them hugely the largest, our city. So
We still
it's very,
benefit from
very,
the
very
property
important,
tax,
very
yeah.
important part of our community, correct?
Okay. So, because I'm showing, and maybe that's just wrong, I'm showing 13.9.
No, so we get about two, out of that 13.9, I mean, like this past year, we're gonna get, just for general fund, about 3 million.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, and the reason why I say it is because just looking at the growth, and this is what I do in real life, is to look at, because I have the budget the same way. And you're looking at, if we take the last 6 months, which I'm not sure our city benefited post-COVID from February to now. I mean, we're looking at a $500,000 increase. But if you take this last 6 months average, then you're looking at an actual revenue now of 17.9, which, taking the difference, not coming into this 380 agreement, not knowing that walking into the meeting, that's a $6.5 million increase, not a $300,000 increase. That's what I walked in with. So I'm glad you shared that, because that was something I did not know.
So there's something, a point to make. Yes, you were looking at gross, and part of that was that we were successful in bringing more of their locations to here.
Okay.
And they brought more of their business to here because of their 380 agreement, which meant that the net remaining amount on our part also increased. It's kind of like this: if I give you, if you give me $2 and I give you one back, it's easy for you to give me $2, and I'm better off because I still have a dollar, even though I gave half of it back, right? I'm still better off, and that's where we are as a city. And so some of the growth you saw was the fact that they increased the size of their business substantially by the fact of bringing outside locations business here. What you're seeing there is the growth in gross sales tax, but of course, the vast majority of that is refunded back, and you take a look at the net. The $300 and some thousand that we'll be collecting is what we'd be collecting next year above what we're collecting this year. So when you take a look at the budget, we created next year's budget based upon our receipts that you're looking at right now, and based upon the net receipts that we have after the 380 agreement. and what we have to pay with our 71 employees and our part-times and all the equipment that we maintain. And that balanced budget is based upon the sales tax and the property tax and our permit fees, which is a very small miscellaneous other fees that come in there. It's mostly property sales tax that fund a city. So we have a balanced budget at this point with a little bit of a surplus, but not enough of a surplus to pay for salaries. And when we see the needs of the community, and I also want to take this opportunity to give a perspective. One of the things the city has done is looking at how do we pay down our debt. Because when you take a look at your property tax component of total citizen taxes, property taxes is broken up into maintenance and operations, running the city, and interest and sinking, which would be our debt. So when we issue bonds, we have debt, we have to pay it back. As you pay down debt, you have to reduce that percentage of the property taxes. So we paid down debt, been doing very well with the city, and we have instituted some financial controls, et cetera. And so we've restored our savings and paid down debt. And so property taxes were just decreased by 7.91%. And that affects 100% of our businesses and 100% of our citizens. So we could have kept that up, but one way is to take a look is if we could either keep everybody's property taxes up or lower everybody's property taxes and look at a sales tax that most is paid for by outside people and a little bit is paid for by our residents. And that is a net benefit and a net lower tax to our residents than, the other direction.
And again, I 100% support the increase. I just wanted to, when I was running the numbers, I was like, well, for
Yeah.
6.5, I can do quite a bit.
So breaking it down, the general fund is about, like I said, 3. EDC's about 1.7, and then street maintenance is almost $1 million, not quite, from last year's. This is last year's numbers.
And so you're looking at the gross there. So the 1.7 for the EDC and the 1 for the road, we can't even touch or use. Even though we're collecting, we can't use it because those are dedicated funds for those operations. So we're looking at the remaining, the city out of that 8%, and we're proposing to go to 8.25%, we only get 1% for our operations. So it would considerably affect our operations and allow us to be able to hire those 8 police officers and be able to hire them immediately, even though those funds don't really roll in until probably April next year.
Does the EDC, the city still runs that though, correct?
Yeah, it's a
It's
corporation of the
still of the
city.
city.
It's a wholly owned corporation with its autonomous board, and they have a president of the board, and then they have an executive director. So it is governmental funds. They still have to abide by government policy and purchasing expenditures and all the controls in effect. And it is an extension of the city, but they, as a corporation, they're able to do things that we can't when it comes
With
to,
the money.
promoting events, for example, or various other incentives for economic development. They can provide economic development, tenant finish out projects, for example, to help encourage a business to move to town, something the city cannot do because we cannot promote one business over another, but an EDC can make a program available that anybody can take advantage of.
Okay, so and I appreciate all that. That's some good information now, knowing that it lessens the available money even more. So I just want to, just to be out there, 100% support the addition of police officers / firefighters. And so the key is we all know NFPA 1710, and I know, Chief is back there right now. And I do not work for the city, by the way, so I'm not doing anything there, but they're running slim. It's not just police, it's not just public works, it's not just the others. They're running pretty slim. And and the firefighters keep leaving because there's always a better opportunity, which is anywhere. And at times I've even been in that department. That's one of those better opportunities. And I love getting a new firefighter, but at the same time, that's my city. So, how do we protect? Now, I lived here since I was 18. How do I protect the city? How do I give the resources, the ability, the monies to the city to do that? And as far right as I could possibly be and never want any more taxes, I actually do. And the reason for that is because I moved here and have stayed here with the sole reason that it's a safe city. I know I have law enforcement. Law enforcement has come to my house for various things, from dogs loose to, hey, I think there might be someone, in my backyard, within minutes. There's never been a question on that. We've had to use fire and EMS before, within minutes. It's never been a question. But that ability is dwindling down because of just resources. And I'm not sure how else creatively, strategically we can do that to support this mission, but also how do we support it even more? And so I'm one of those folks that will help you with that. But I think that, that needs to be heard maybe a little bit more. When I took this, I'm like, hey, as much as I'm for police, that's only one piece of our problem here. I think it's even.
Well, let me also clarify. It's no secret. My full-time job is a San Antonio firefighter, so public safety. I'm third generation firefighter, so public safety runs through my veins. And as much as I am a professional firefighter, and that's my life's blood, and I bleed red. But I also bleed blue because this is my city, and we have a prioritization, as you well know. Fire responds to the number of calls, and so it's easier to be able to staff based upon your call volume for appropriate staffing. Police is a little bit more. You do have call volume, and we have had increased volume, but also part of the need for additional police officers is deterrent value. When you're driving through a neighborhood, if you're a criminal driving through the neighborhood and everywhere you look, there's another police officer, there's another police officer. You know what? Get up, go someplace else. Don't bring your crime here because we're going to catch you and we are not going to be lenient. Fortunately, we're not dealing with violent crime. The issues that we have are more on the petty side of things that police presence we believe will have a deterrent value, and we want to support that. That said, there is, as Councilman brought it out, there will be excess monies. Its priority is the police officers, but any excess monies from that will go into general fund, which can support any function that the city does. But as you know, we are facing inflationary times, and it's near impossible to keep salaries up with that. So that will certainly go to aid in general when we're dealing with salaries and supporting salaries, which would include fire as far as that aspect. But we are looking at, and Chief is here, we've had a number of things for grants that we're applying for additional officers to bring them on, and then once the grant pays for it, then be able to pick up. This will certainly provide general fund support for such additional positions as needed.
And I would definitely, support that and look at not just adding them, but see what you can do to increase, their benefits, put something to keep them here, something where this is a career department for both law enforcement and fire, and this is their home and it stays their home. If they choose to do so and they're not moving around, I think you have a lot of, ones that have stayed here for quite a while, but then there's some that are, just, they got to meet their ends meet, as inflation goes up for their families. So whatever we need to do that, I definitely support it. Like to see more on both sides, and I appreciate the law enforcement that's out there, and absolutely you're right, and that's one of the sole reasons I've stayed is in the city, is because I can trust the law enforcement and the emergency services from fire and EMS. So but just would love to see that increase somehow, while at the same time taking care of our parks and roads and everything else that we need. So I don't know how that looks. That's what you guys are here for. So whatever you need from us, I'm definitely a supporter of that. So but I appreciate it. Thank you for that clarification, because I was like, for 16 million, we're going to have 3 new fire stations and a couple new police stations tonight.
I wish we had that, but we don't. It's chalk that up to the cost of doing business. Had we not had that, our revenues would have been more like 3 million gross, and
Correct.
as opposed to it.
And I guess, well, the other question too is that at some point, does the EDC has their job been done? At some point, we're kind of maxed in and blocked in, and then it's like, okay, can the voters bring that money down? Can it come down a little bit, and then that money move over to general funds if that's what needed to happen?
Well,
I'm not saying it does.
Can I mention what has been done, Frank, to that
Sure.
question? Okay, so to that end, it has been one of my strategies, and it became a directive by council because they agreed, and we worked with EDC over the past year to change some of the focus of EDC instead of being so aggressively expansionary. They still have a job to do to develop, fill in some of the empty tenants. When somebody packs up shop and moves away, we'll help get another tenant there. While that does help the landlord, it helps the city as well too, to keep sales tax flowing. But the question was, do we build another 100 businesses out there on one bookend? The other bookend is, let's not develop it all and not do any economic development and shift all that effort towards the city. There's a happy balance in there. And so what has happened over this past year is we made an agreement with them where EDC is now putting $325,000 a year back into the city that will be paying down. So we are now scheduled to be debt-free as a city in 12 years. And so, of course, with each year passing when we pay down debt, as I talked with you earlier before, or shared earlier, that comes with it a reduction in property tax from the interest and sinking side of the equation of property taxes. So we are actually doing exactly what you were suggesting we do. It's already in play, and we're receiving our first payment on that. And so we will be systematically becoming debt-free and systematically reducing the INS portion of property taxes each year for the next 12 years.
And that includes all the previous, like the old lawsuit and all that, correct? Is that all?
We are
still in
happy
there?
to say that we are now out from underneath the expenditures of that. And we'll just leave it there.
Leave it at that, yes. All right. Thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sir, I think you had a question. You want to come up, please?
Hello, my name is Andrew Alanis, and I'm at 10630 Windwalker in Einhorst. And thank you so much for putting this meeting together. I came in very uninformed, and I really wanted to be informed. I could go either direction, so I appreciate you guys putting this on. One of the questions, I actually had two questions, but one of them was kind of just answered with the amount of businesses, because you said that the extended jurisdiction expanded a lot of residential, that caused a lot of problems. I'm wondering if there's like a lot of businesses being developed there or anything that would probably bring in tax revenue, if there's any plans. That's something, a little minor question was kind of answered with him. But my second question is also, I know this was the second time that you guys put this on the ballot and it wasn't passed the last time. Is there any reason why you feel like that wasn't passed, or kind of give a little bit more information to what's done differently this time that you think this will pass?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to answer this question as not an official position of the city, but as my personal opinion and a relayance of fact and my personal interpretation of what went on. Last year's election, we brought it up because we recognized it was unanimous across council that we needed extra police officers for the exact same reasons that we already discussed. In truth, everybody thought it was a no-brainer, and we thought everybody would certainly vote for that, and it was fairly close. I believe the percentage was
Yeah, it was
pretty
very
close to
close.
50-50. It missed by, if 29 people changed their votes, it would have passed.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was that close. I think it was 58, 59 total votes. We divide that in half for the number of people. So 29 people changed their votes. And I think there was over 1,000 people voting. So, I mean, it was 51, 49%. So it was right there, and there was zero information, zero going out there. Officially, the city cannot come out and say this is the city's position to vote for or to vote against. They can't do that. So it's rested upon the individuals to take it upon themselves and out of their spare time go knock on doors. Well, when we realized that, there were some certain people that came out aggressively against it last year. I personally spoke with a couple of them, and upon a little bit of education, they realized and actually literally said, well, oh, I didn't realize that. I would have been for it. Well, they carried a significant amount of weight in the against it at that point. This year, as we went out, the city gave out a frequently asked questions. They sent a mailer that is not a position piece, but a statement of fact of what it is about, what it's going to be used. So people were educated about it, realized what the purpose of it. People that are on their individuals, myself have been out there, other council members have been out there giving their opinions on it and educating people and answering people's questions. And I have seen a significant education and understanding by the public that I personally feel that we'll see a different outcome. But once again, this is not something that the city is imposing upon the people. We are just giving the people an opportunity to determine what's important to them. Public safety at the cost of a few dollars a year in sales tax, or to not have that, right? And so we're just giving the people an opportunity to express what's important to them. But that would be the difference. I think in my personal experience from going door to door and talking with people, It's a vastly different disposition this year has been the response I've received from citizens.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm definitely for a firefighter in the local community. I moved here 2 years ago. I think I didn't vote because I had just moved here, but I'm happy to vote now, and I'm glad to see more put into our city and police and firefighter. And I appreciate you telling me all the revenues and having transparency, because I think that's most important with this kind of initiative.
I appreciate that. Transparency is one of the things we've taken great strides to increase over this past year and a half. I think we have achieved a significant increase in community engagement. Our social media platforms, Sam out there, I think we have 6 or at least 6, if not 7 social media platforms. We make them post as often as we can about as many things that we possibly can, holding things such as town halls, getting out and having our council people actually engage with the citizens and have conversations and get good feedback that way. And so we're making great strides, and we'll continue to do so.
All right. Thank you, council member and the mayor.
Anybody else have a question? Well, all right. I certainly appreciate everybody that came here today. I know it takes a lot of time out of your evening, but we have a wonderful city here. And I believe that is because we have high-quality citizens that are engaged and care about their city. And I know there's people online watching. I know that people get involved, and sometimes they just can't come out to events. I get that. Having to be here all the time, I understand the challenges. But
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
And just for clarification purposes, under the election code, the city can provide factual information on the bond election. City staff cannot take any position to favor or oppose such proposition. The elected officials, the EDC board members, may use their positions to try and convince people to vote for or against the ballot proposition. Their limitation is they simply cannot use city resources to support their position. But if they want to go knock on doors and try to talk you into voting for it, that is legal. It's just the only prohibition is prohibition of using of public funds to favor or oppose a specific candidate or proposition.
So the city did send out, and it was something we did run through legal. You probably all got a postcard, okay? And we have flyers out in the hallway, et cetera. These are just statements of fact of what the tax is, what the voting dates are, et cetera. This is information that staff shares. And again, we started this off by saying the staff cannot take a position. This is not a city council meeting, so it's a little different format as a town hall. And so that we're, as elected officials, we're able to share our personal opinions and positions on it. But I want to thank the efforts of the council members that have arrived at the decision to be able to put this in your hands. And I certainly thank you for your time and efforts. I do want to state for the record that those of you that are watching, if we did not get to your question tonight, please email questions to publicrelations@helotes-tx.gov, and we will respond to them. For more information about elections, you can visit the City of Helotes website at www.helotes-tx.gov. And we're certainly thankful for the citizens of Helotes who made it here tonight and who make our city great. It's my pleasure to serve you as mayor. Your city leadership team, including council, is working very hard on your behalf every day, and we look forward to continuing to do so. Thank you very much, and have a good night.